Hello, hello, hello there, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat, authentic networking version. And as we get started, if this is the first time you're joining, hello, my name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And my zone of genius is in helping professionals and entrepreneurs, excuse me, to uplevel their goals and help them to achieve them in a professional way, with integrity and maintaining their values while also expanding their ability to build a sustainable professional network that supports them along the way. So that said, of course, that means I'm talking about my favorite topic today, which is networking. And for this month, we have been starting on this series about team professional relationship development. And based on some of the requests that I've gotten in the past, I felt like it was probably time to go ahead and take this slight detour. And why I say it as a detour is that while we're still talking about professional relationship building and authentic networking, it's more focused on a perspective of someone who needs to help their team get there, or at least to help identify things and issues to help them along the way so that they can be more productive for the organization overall. So that's the slight detour we're taking in this series. And so I hope that you will enjoy it and take it and share it with others around you. So whether you're in HR, whether you are a CEO, whether you are in an executive leadership position in your organization and or lead teams, that you will take some of this and go with it, because that's what I've found people have been asking a lot about, and the need is great. So that said, in our first part of the series, we talked about the actions that need to be taken in order to build your team's confidence. And that was super important, because if you can't help recognize and be empathetic to the needs of your team with regards to their nervousness, their feelings of inadequacy, or whatever around building relationships, not just for themselves, but for the organization or for the company, well, then you're going to have a big problem on your hand. And that's what we don't want you to have, okay? So it's very important to sit back, listen, be empathetic to their needs, to their fears, and so that you can know how to approach your specific team's confidence building needs as they are. And that may be different from one team to the next. There are probably some overlaps and some things generally, as I discussed in that previous conversation, but there are other things that could be more specific that may need a more targeted approach, okay? So that said, this week we are talking about identifying relationship needs of your team and the organization. So now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of it. First, we have to address the confidence issues that your team may have with even doing work like this. But next, we're going to say, hey, if you don't, this is tied to confidence building, because if you and your team do not clearly know who or why they're trying to interact or engage certain people or certain audiences, well, they won't be able to move forward with confidence. That's going to add to the confusion, the lack of clarity, and really take a hit on their self-esteem. And you want them to feel confident, to feel empowered even, so that they can move forward and do their part to help build out the needs and address the needs, issues, vision, mission, whatever of the organization and the company. All right, so here's the first thing. First is you must address the who and what of the markets, the industry, or the profession, so that those folks or those entities are that are in synergy with your goals, missions, and values. Okay, a lot of words. What does that mean? It means that you, as the team lead and or executive and or CEO, if you're an entrepreneur, need to sit down and have some little thought time. And some of you may be foreign to that, but if you've been following me, you know I'm a big fan of the journal and the thought time, because it's a great way to get a lot of things out of our head onto paper. And then when you actually see it, you're like, oh, wow. Or you're like, oh, no. So it's actually very helpful to get that out on paper. All right. So here's the thing. You want to ask yourself some questions like, what is our greatest need as an organization? Right? If that's something that's too broad because you're a much smaller piece of it, then it's like, what is the greatest need of our department right now? Okay. And how do I want to get there? Right? And so when you ask just those two basic questions, that should start generating some insight as to the types of things, people, and places that you may need to integrate to help your team reach out to them. So for example, let's use an example. Okay. So let's say that you are a marketing outreach team for a large nonprofit organization. Okay. And so you know that right now, especially as we're coming out of this pandemic, that your needs are that you need to reestablish yourself in the marketplace. You need to reestablish that you are here to meet the needs of the people that you would normally serve, that you would go out and touch, right? And that those organizations that you would do that they can have the confidence to do that. So what does that mean? So when you identify those as to like who or what your need is and who or what can help you address it, then you can start laying out specific names and types, right? So maybe you need to meet other people in the marketing outreach space that are related to your business or your organization. Maybe your outreach team needs to connect more with other professionals who are marketers, but also are more in a PR realm or more in a sales realm. Whatever. They're not selling, but they need to know more about the company so that they can interact and represent the company, represent the organization well when they're going out. Okay, do you see what I'm saying here? So whatever that is, you have to do that pre-work for them. Do not make your team do that, because you may get, if you have 15 people on your team, you may get 15 different answers. You have to set the bar. Okay. And if that direction comes from a higher space, then make sure that you acknowledge that, right? So if you're a department and organization, then you want to make sure that you're tapped in to what your supervisor, what your executive lead says. If you're the CEO, you want to make sure that it aligns with your mission and values and the things that you said you want to do, so that if you're hiring someone to contract out for you, that they can work in alignment with what you said, who you are, and what you're doing. Okay. If you're a straight up professional that's a part of an organization, but you're like, then it's those types of things as well, which is, if you're a lawyer, what is my firm really focused on these days, right? Is it focused more on community outreach as a part of our strategy? Are we focused more on a specific industry? Okay, same thing, whatever profession you're in, engineers, accountants, all of those things. Same concept applies. Identify the who and the what, and then the why. If you're doing that because you want to build forward to meet a certain goal, whatever it may be. Okay. So identify the who and the what and ask the question why, so that you can level set the playing field for your team or those that you're working with, so that everyone is on the same page and that you don't have 15 different ideas about what that means and why you're engaging with other people in this manner. Okay, because remember, we're talking about building out your professional network so that it is sustainable and helpful to you as an organization and your people personally as well. Because if it does that, then it builds up the organization. It's just the reality of it. Okay. If they have good relationships, it looks well for you. So you have to help them get there. Right. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, the who and the what of what will benefit your team in their roles directly. All right. So this may link to what you've already said, but if your team is not getting the professional development that they need in order to sustain that, in order to be able to engage in industry level conversations comfortably, then you have got to get them the professional development that they need in order to address their confidence levels, address their skill levels so that they can be good ambassadors for you. That's really what we're talking about. What do you need to do in order to help your people be a good ambassador for your organization? Okay. And so that may mean up-leveling their professional development, making the investments in them to attend professional development conferences or workshops, because all of those things are still going on. They're just going on in a virtual setting. Maybe there are certain people who will eventually get to venture out and go to a live in-person thing later this year. This is the time to start laying that groundwork to make those decisions and figure out, and being very fluid and flexible, of course, but the idea being that you're always going to be keeping an eye out for what they may need. The other thing, because it was really interesting, this came up in a conversation last week, is that if you do not know, or if you are uncertain as to what they need, then you need to ask your people. I was amazed in talking to another entrepreneur who was working on a project, and a potential client for them was like, "Oh, well, just do whatever you want." And he was like, and I was like, you need to get the input. He needs to get the input of his people so that it can be relevant to them, so that they're not just getting another dose of some random development piece that they don't find helpful. That's a waste of time, and it's insulting to the professional providing the skill or providing the information, because it's going to make him look bad, because it's like, "Oh, it was okay. It wasn't that great." What? Well, it wasn't that great because the team lead didn't take the time to actually ask his people what they thought they needed so that he can get targeted help for them. All right. When you get that targeted help and assistance for them, guess what? Going to those industry market level activities, joining a professional association that's affiliated with those folks in your market or whatever it may be, that becomes another space for them to serve as ambassadors for the organization. Do you see what just happened? You just got like a triple hit on that. First, they're gaining knowledge and skills that's helpful to them in their professional capacity. Second, they're gaining skills and knowledge that's helpful to them in their personal capacity. So it's something that they own, because this is knowledge that they've gained, exposure that they've gained, right? And third, because now they're also out there, and your folks in your world are saying like, "Hey, those people, they're sending their people to training, and I met up with them and we connected," or whatever. Okay. And all of those details of how to connect up, that's stuff that I've put in other places, and I'm happy to direct you to them. Just, reach out to me, DM me or whatever, and I'll tell you with some of my other content about that. But here's the thing. You just got a triple hit on that. That's how you build loyalty. That's how you build confidence. And that's how you build forward in your organizations to get people back on track after this year of being like frozen in place. Okay? So be strategic about that. Be thoughtful about it, but do it. That's super, super important. All right? Okay, the third thing when you're identifying relationship needs of your team and organization is to do some vision-based networking. And what do I mean by that? I mean having a few key people to start connecting on where you are headed. Okay, so what we've really been talking about is like where you are now and the work you want to do, sure, in the near future. But I'm talking about if you know you are preparing for a major shift in the next 2, 3, 5 years, then how about taking a few people to strategically start developing them, putting them in place to be the ambassador for that shift? All right. Now, a lot of times this stays very high level in organizations because either, confidentiality issues, things like that. But here's what I'm going to push back a little bit on. Because here's the thing. If you spring this on your team, they're going to be like, where did this come from? As opposed to if you just communicate, we're going to be making some shifts in the next 3 to 5 years. You won't necessarily know about everything right off the bat, but we're probably going to be pulling a few people in to help guide, to help, touch base with the next level folks. And so just keep an eye out for that. Simple as that. Whatever, and addressing that in whatever manner fits your company or organizational culture. And then that allows you to cherry pick and hand pick a couple of people who are, already prepared as far as their confidence levels, who are already prepared as far as some of their knowledge levels, and they're ready for the next level challenge or the next level grooming. And you can use those people to start saying, hey, how about you go to this retreat on our behalf and check back in with me when you get back. Hey, I'm going to send you to this, this conference next year. So I want you to put it on your calendar. Okay. First of all, they may be shocked, but if you're honest, authentic, and open about it, you're like, you know what, we're going to be moving in a certain way, and we need to start getting people prepared for that. So I'm going to have you be one of the people from this team to start moving in that direction, to start interacting with these other folks who we have identified as the folks, the industry, the people that we need to be relating with if we're going to achieve this goal at this time. Okay? And it's fantastic because it's an opportunity for a leader, an executive to open up as transitions happen, but to use those opportunities as growth mechanisms for your people. Again, triple hit, triple threat. That's a great threat, right? Because you're growing your people, you're getting people in position to learn, to be more aware, and you're getting your organization and your folks out there and in place to be recognized in the marketplace. And this is important because one of my first clients, when I first got started, it was fascinating to me. It was not from a salesperson. It was not from a sales lead when they called to reach out to me, say, hey, I need you to come talk to my, I saw this presentation you made, or that I missed it. Can you come do it for my team? And the issue was that this team lead had a group of people who would go to conferences, go to workshops, and then just come back. They did not know how to utilize that information. They had not made the connection on why and how it played into the work that they did, as technicians and all of that. But once you start taking people, explaining that to them, and saying, when you go to that conference and you engage with people and you use them as a resource for the next level project that you have, that you stay in touch with them so that if you have a question, now you've got a new connection to reach out to outside of your organization to help build for what you're doing. It was mind-blowing. I had people in the surveys follow up. They're like, I had never thought of this in this way. The attendees, they're like, I never thought that that's why I needed to be going to these things. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to go get the technical skill or knowledge, and then I'm going back and I'm like, okay, fine. But when you start adding and having people think about, no, you're there to connect with the other people as well, not just to gain that new knowledge, but to gain new relationships, total shift. And how you approach your team, how your team approaches the opportunities that they engage in, and how they can contribute to the bottom line, whether you are a profit generating organization or not. Because if you're a mission-based organization, they can still contribute because they become an ambassador for the organization. Okay? All right, I think that's it. That is it. So if you want to pull me in to have a conversation about what this can look like and doing an in-depth training for your team on all of this, on this opportunities to build professional relationships that are sustainable and that contribute to the bottom line of your organization, feel free to hit me up in the DMs or to get on my calendar. I'll drop a Calendly link. And let's have a chit chat about what that looks like. I've done this several times. It's been great and fantastic. And there are a few more things in the pipeline. So I'm looking forward to sharing with people in a couple of my traditional workshop formats, but also in a group coaching format as well. So there's lots of opportunities, lots of ways to share and engage, but let's just get on the phone and talk about what that looks like for you and your team. All right. Take care, everyone. And I will chat with you later. Bye-bye.